What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Pens and Tea. My name is Carrie, and today we are talking about some of the Noodlers Flex pens, specifically the Ahab and the Conrad. And we will also be talking about Connemara Irish Afternoon Tea. So this tea here was actually a gift. A friend of mine went to Ireland and brought this back for me. This is Irish Afternoon Tea. Little bit of knowledge for you. I actually wanted to look it up because I was confused for a bit. What's the difference between English breakfast, English afternoon, Irish breakfast, Irish afternoon, Scottish breakfast? Like, you see all these different teas. What is the difference? Well, in a very, very brief description, English is going to be the weakest, Irish is in the middle, and Scottish is the strongest. And as far as the breakfast, afternoon, and sometimes you'll even see dinner or supper, depending on where you're buying it, that also gives you an idea for strength. So breakfast is supposed to be like coffee. It just knocks you in the face, so it's really, really strong. Afternoon is kind of middle of the road, so not as strong as breakfast, but dinner being the weakest, you're relaxing, you're going to go to bed, it's going to be the weakest. So afternoon, middle of the road, Irish, middle of the road between English and Scottish. So I now call this the middle of my middle tea. I don't know, it's kind of weird. It's a black tea. I actually have it in a little bag here. It's kind of like a robust, like malty flavor almost. There's not a whole lot of scent to it. Let's see if I can show you without opening too much. Sort of. It's basically just black tea leaves. It's definitely a stronger tea that really doesn't have much added flavor to it. It's something that I want to drink when I really do want a very heavy tea. A very strong tea. This, you basically let at a full boil again. Come on, get in there. And then you let it steep or draw, as the container so says, for about 3 minutes. And if you go any longer than that, it becomes intense, especially if you drink your tea black. If you don't add any lemon or sugar or milk, cream, whatever, then you're definitely not going to want to let this go for more than 3 minutes, because it's gonna knock your socks off. It's strong. As far as this blend goes specifically, the Connemara Kitchen, I don't believe you can buy this in Canada or the States. I haven't seen it, and I haven't really seen it online either. Like I said, this one came actually from Ireland. However, you can get breakfast blends, afternoon blends, specifically Irish, but even Scottish, English, all that kind of stuff. Pretty much anywhere, a lot of companies make it. The downside is that there's absolutely no standardization when it comes to these blends. So you're not always going to get the same thing. So you're going to have to experiment a little bit between all the different brands. So that's kind of like, not so good. But this one in particular is amazing. So if you are looking for a more plain tea, one that can kind of kick you in the face, then you're going to want to go with afternoon. If you're caffeine sensitive, you're going to want to maybe look towards dinner. But if you're a coffee drinker, especially if you're a coffee drinker and you're looking to get into teas, then definitely head towards the breakfast or afternoon blends. Doesn't really matter between English, Irish, or Scottish. Like I said, Scottish is the strongest, English is the weakest, but I've had English before and I quite enjoy it. I haven't had Scottish yet though, so I'm on the lookout for that. If any of you have recommendations, let me know. Alright, so what goes with a hearty tea? Some hearty pens. Let's get into it. So between the Noodlers Conrad, which you see here, and the Noodlers Ahab that I have, which is the black one, there's really not that much difference between them. Physically, they are made out of a different material. This Conrad is acrylic, and the Ahab is plastic. But the actual writing experience, the nib and the feed are the exact same. So material-wise, a little bit different, and filling-wise, different. This one, and I believe all Conrads, are piston fillers. So when you turn the knob at the end, that little piston will move up and down and either eject or suck up the ink that you use. So if that is a concern for you, you don't like pistons, and you may want to stay away from the Conrad and head towards the Ahab. But like I said, the writing experience is identical. Both of them are virtually the same too as far as decal go. They both have silver trim and silver clips that both say Noodlers ink on them. The clips on both pens feel exactly the same to me. They're both springy. They both do their job. Nothing outstanding about them, but with Noodlers pens, they're meant to be just a workhorse. You know, they're kind of basic, and that's the beauty of them in the sense that they are a little bit cheaper. Conrad being a little bit more only because it's acrylic than the Ahab, but either way, like I said, writing experience is the same. So instead of a piston on the Ahab, you have this little plunger, kind of, not really a button fill. It's kind of like I don't even know how I would call this. I'll come up with it later, but essentially when you push that plunger down and draw it up, it sucks ink up as well. So you do the exact same thing, and on this one you can eyedropper fill. You can convert this one to an eyedropper, and on the Conrad you cannot. So if that's something that you're really looking for, then the Ahab may be better for you. Personally, I like the feel of the Conrad a little bit better. It's a little bit thinner, but like I said, it's the same thing on both pens. As far as the nib and the feed go. Friction fit, you can pull them out, you can do whatever you want. This is actually going to become very important that you get comfortable taking the nib and the feed out, because these pens are finicky. You will have to adjust where the nib and the feed sit in the housing. So you can just kind of slide up and down depending on what you like. And then to put it back in, same thing, you just give it a good push. The farther in you have your feed and the farther out you have your nib, the easier it's going to be to flex, but the drier it's going to be. So you're going to have to play around with the setting, unless you get lucky and it works right off the bat. If it does, then that's awesome for you. The size difference between the two, Conrad's a little bit smaller, the Ahab is a little bit bigger width-wise, but the Conrad's taller than the Ahab. And then here you can see compared to other pens. Like I said, the writing experience is the exact same on both. So I'm going to choose to use the Conrad and fill it up with Lamy turquoise ink, which is my favorite turquoise. It is gorgeous and has a beautiful red sheen to it and shades very, very well. So I like to use this ink in my flex pens, which I say pens like I have lots. I really only have two. And then I have a semi-flex, which is the Pilot Falcon that I've already done a review of. So to fill this, basically you just want to make sure that the piston or that plunger is all the way down before you dip your nib into the ink, just so that you don't get like ink bubbles. And then you're going to turn the piston the other way to suck up all the ink. I do this maneuver twice. Reason being is because the first time you're going to fill it, you are sucking in all the air that was in the feed before. So this way you just get a better fill. But you don't have to. If you're fine with a little bit of an air bubble, you know you're not going to go through all that much ink anyways, then you don't have to do it the second time. But I usually recommend it specifically for these flex pens, because as you flex, which you'll see a little bit later, you're going to see a lot of ink start to come out. And it can get pretty darn wet, even when you're just writing every day and not flexing with these pens, which I also recommend because they're incredibly smooth. It's a wet pen. The feed is an ebonite feed. It's meant to keep up, with what you're doing. So I would recommend getting it as full as you can, because you will go through ink. But if you don't like the nib, you can switch it out with pretty much any other number 6 size nib, especially if you don't like the flex. So just starting out with everyday writing, it's very smooth. Like I said, the ink flows out really nicely. So there's certainly no issues. I really enjoy using it as an everyday writer. I'm not a huge flex writer, so I'm not, the best at it either, which you'll see in a second, but I use it predominantly just for everyday writing. I think the pen is beautiful. And yeah, so I would definitely recommend it even just for that. But of course, a lot of people are going to get it for flex. Which you can see here, I'm actually starting to have some trouble. And this is what I meant earlier by saying that it can be a little bit finicky. So these are meant to be played around with. So when I put the nib and the feed back in, you can see it's not writing once I emptied out what the feed was in. So it's not flowing properly. So what I need to do now is adjust the nib and the feed. So I slightly pull it out. I don't pull it out all the way. It's just so I don't get like ink flying everywhere. But I slightly pull it out and then kind of like slide it back in. And then you can see here, it works much, much better. You can go from about a fine size nib to a broad nib when you are flexing this pen. Like I said, I'm not the best at it, so I mean, I'm not an amazing judge as far as, how beautiful you can make your writing look, but it can certainly do what it's asked of. One thing I will caution you all when you use it, especially if this is the first time, you have to press pretty darn hard in order to get this pen to flex to the level that you're seeing me do it. It requires a good amount of pressure. Now, as you use the pen, like my Ahab is over a year old now, I don't have to press that one as hard as I do my Conrad because my Conrad's new. So I've broken in the Ahab a little bit. But if you were to jump into a traditional flex pen, a gold nib flex pen, even the Pilot Falcon, you've got to be careful because if you get used to these ones where you're throwing a ton of pressure behind it and you use anything else, you could damage that nib because of the pressure you have to put on this. But I actually really like it because it's a good way to get into it. American prices, the Ahab is $23 and the Conrad is $20. Canadian prices, they're both $29. So they're honestly amazing pens to use every day, but especially if you want to kind of dip your toes in the sand and see what flex is like, absolutely pick one up. They're amazing.